Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Another special conversation, another special series on leadership, on what life post-COVID 2019 is going to look like. Dr. Bhupen, well, that's me, in partnership with Speakin, one of India's leading communication platforms. Today, in conversation with the one and only Mr. Manoj Kohli. Now, I must at the very outset say that Mr. Manoj Kohli does not like to be referred to as Mr. Kohli. So we shall refer to him and we shall introduce him as Manoj. Manoj, good to see you smiling. It's nice to see smiling faces, in times like these when absolutely nothing.
Very happy to be with you.
Lovely to see you, Manoj bhai, and hope that you and I will have an eclectic conversation which will lead to maybe many examples and lessons for people around us. So Manoj ji, सबसे पहले तो ये बताइए, and I'll try and keep it bilingual so that major chunk of our audiences across different platforms can be a beneficiary of this conversation. सबसे पहले तो ये बताइए मनोज जी कि हो क्या रहा है आपके मुताबिक, दुनिया कहाँ जा रही है, देश कहाँ जा रहा है, हम सब कहाँ जा रहे हैं? For a big leader like you, where are we really headed, Manoj?
No, I think the world is heading for a huge transformation. जब भी ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन होता है, कुछ अच्छा भी होता है, कुछ कम अच्छा भी होता है, कुछ ज्यादा अच्छा भी होता है. So I feel that there are some lessons we had lost over the years, and now we are getting back those lessons. For example, caring for nature. I can see now much more birds and animals and greenery, plants, trees, much more green. The environment is so good quality. So there are some positive impacts of that. Yes, there is a suffering also. But I think overall there are many, many lessons for leaders, for nations, for India, for businesses, which we need to reset our life, reset our future accordingly.
I like that word, reset, that you use. And I myself have been asking this question to myself. Here I am in Bhimtal. I'm not in Delhi, though I usually spend my time in Delhi. I've chosen to take the boldest gambit of my life, where I have decided to move on strictly from a TV studio now to this new age digital world. Throw some light on what is life in a reset mode. In conventional terms, we press the pause button and then we move to the reset mode. How does a business person, or how does it, before we come to the business part of it, let's say to the individual part of it, how does an individual press this pause button and get into this reset mode, Manoj bhai?
Yeah, if the individuals are strong, which means strong internally, then they can press the reset very easily, let me tell you. But if the individuals are not strong enough, then the circumstances force individuals to reset. And I think these circumstances will definitely force individuals to reset and refresh. Now, what has to be done? One is that over the years, we have built as individuals, as nations, as companies, trained incapacity, which means we have trained ourselves in an incapacity, which means that this is the only way to lead life, this is the only way to do this thing, this is the only way to be happy, etc., etc. And I think all those trained incapacities will be thrown out. And especially people who are bold like you, they will reset faster because they are not only bold, they are agile, they are flexible, and they'll reset towards betterment of themselves and betterment of society around them.
So let's take that strand of thought forward. Look at the conversation, look at the discourse which is taking place around us. Every person I'm speaking to today, whether it's a small or a medium corporate, an employee, there are two big concerns, Manoj bhai, which are being expressed today. Concern number one, how is my business going to survive? And concern number two, how am I going to hold on to that job? To those who are worried about their businesses, how will business survive? And to those who are worried, how will I come out of this still holding on to my job? What kind of suggestion would you give to them, Manoj bhai?
Okay, let me start with business. Businesses have to reset also. It's very clear that you can't carry on the business in the same way as you were carrying 3 months back or 6 months back. And I want to recommend 5 major shifts. Number one, there's a shift of business model. There's a shift of strategy based on the new consumer behavior. Consumer is behaving in a new way. For example, the digitization of the world, what happened over last 1 decade, may have happened in last 2 months. So the speed of digitization, the speed of digital behavior, the speed of people using, even in a small town, let's say close to where you are, Haldwani or such small towns, Rudrapur, I remember I worked in Rudrapur many years back. So in those towns also, the housewives will be shopping on their phone, will be buying things or even selling things, will doing a lot of things on their phone, which means they are kind of digitized already. They may not be highly computerized, they may not have a laptop, but they're digitized. So based on a consumer behavior change which will happen, and many changes will happen. Every product, every service will have a different change. Hence, my business model, my company's business model has to change, which till yesterday was in one way, and now will be in a different way. So that is one big change, and we, all companies, all leaders should start thinking what changes are to be brought in my model, in my strategy for future, based on this major transformation. The second thing is about frugality or cost efficiency. I think huge wastage has been happening in many, many businesses on how we spend money. Now, India comparatively less wastage, but globally I'm seeing much more wastage. India is more frugal in that sense because we are brought up frugally. Our engineering is frugal, but clearly even here. So I think the cost efficiency and productivity standards and benchmarks have to go up substantially. So consumer will not pay for your wastage. He will only pay for something which you're doing intrinsically for the product improvement or service improvement. So that is the second thing, much more cost efficiency, much more productivity. Third thing is about innovation. I think the businesses which are able to innovate, bring out new products, new services, go to new markets faster, will blossom, will do much better now. You can't just say that this is the product I had for last 10 years, 20 years, this is what I will sell now. No. Consumers will demand something better, something lighter, something maybe less expensive, because the world actually will go to spending less per unit, I feel, because I think there'll be a caution in the air, and therefore they will demand the same quality, but maybe with higher efficiency. So therefore innovation is very important. And there are companies who innovate very well, who have teams who are innovating, who are doing a lot of research and introducing new innovations, new creativity. And some companies are not. So companies who are not will definitely not grow as fast. The fourth area, which is also very, very important, is focus on cash flows. Now, in the last decade, we have seen that many companies don't focus on cash flows. They're basically focusing on growth of customers, whether paying customers, non-paying customers, revenue paying customers or not. And focus on cash flow has gone down. And therefore, focus on leverage, on debt, etc., has gone up. Therefore, now it's a time to balance. Whereas focus on cash flows has to grow, which means cash is king. Companies who have cash in their pocket, who save money, who don't waste money, who really conserve cash, will actually not only survive but also win. And last but not the least, people culture, performance culture, people sensitivity, people empathy is critical. Companies who show that empathy will win. Companies who are being very harsh, companies who are not talking enough to employees will have serious problems in the long term, because talent is everything. Talent is the only thing which will bring the uncertainty to certainty. How will the uncertainty change to certainty? Only through good talent.
Only through good talent. I couldn't agree more. Manoj, with what you said. I think these 5 critical points that you're mentioning about present day life, about life post COVID, I think these points should be really like a Bible. ये किसी के लिए भी, किसी भी बिजनेस हाउस के लिए एक बाइबल टाइप होना चाहिए. शायद नहीं है, और इसलिए मैं चाहूंगा कि हमारे जितने दर्शक आज देख रहे हैं इस बातचीत को, उन सबको मनोज जी की उनकी जो भावना है उसको समझना चाहिए. So let me break it down. Let's take all these points one by one. So let's target frugality and consumption. Now, Manoj bhai, I interact with all kinds of individuals. Let me share a personal example with you, and it's there on my social media streams as well. The other day, I called Mr. Nikunj Sanghi, who happens to be the former chairperson of Federation of Automobile Dealers Association. He's a big-time auto dealer person. And he and his colleagues, who otherwise employ 30 lakh people across the country in their sector, they are most worried that there is no sale happening of any of their vehicles. So Enfield Bullet, जो कि टिपिकली गांव में सबसे ज्यादा एक मोटरसाइकिल बिकती है, उसकी सेल लगभग 0 हो चुकी है पिछले 2 महीने में. Last 2 months, not one single piece of Maruti car has been sold. Now their problem is that if there is no consumption, then how are we going to survive? You are arguing, Manoj bhai, that let there be more frugality. So I'm trying to understand, will this frugal behavior end up leading to a problem on the consumption side, and will that not end up impacting business itself?
No, they are not conflicting with each other. As the economy opens up from next week onwards, in the next 3 months, 6 months, depending on sector to sector, the sales will be normalized. Some sectors may take more than 6 months. For example, hospitality, etc., may take longer. But some sectors may change very fast. They may change within 2 months, 3 months. So that I'm not worried. I feel India is a consumption-driven economy, and consumption will come back. And so I'm not worried. I'm saying consumption, the consumer will maybe more cautious, which means that he'll buy more selectively. He'll buy for value for money. He'll check out everything like we check out. Normally, Indians have a tendency to check out, maybe because a lot of people had earned more money, so they stopped checking out as much as their parents used to. But now they'll check out much more. And therefore, they'll demand value for money along with good quality, which is not bad, which is good for the companies. Companies will actually sell more. The consumer is more confident that he's getting the same quality and value at maybe a slightly lower price.
So what you're saying, and that is what takes me to the other point you make, point number 2, which is innovation. You are therefore suggesting that if any company, just looking at the automobile sector as an example, your argument is that if any sector has to thrive and if they have to bring the audiences in media space back, then let there be innovation. Let there be greater innovation. So let's say if the existing diesel vehicles are not selling, you should think in terms of better technology, maybe powered by solar, battery operated vehicles, which has been spoken about extensively by this government. Would that be the road ahead then for you?
Absolutely. India's, my very firm view is that India's strength is in that area. India's strength is in solar power. India's strength, wind power. Strength is in automobile sector. So why not move the entire sector towards renewable energy so that our pollution comes down, and as well as we use our resources. We don't have to have 100 billion imports from outside India and pay so much forex to those countries. So it's better to use our own resources. Our own resources will be used, our pollution will come down, our people will be happier. So there'll be multiple positive impacts of that, and electric vehicle is part of that. So there will be modification in the manufacturing capability. There will be modification. There will be new innovations taking place, types of batteries, types of vehicles which will come in. So I'm saying India should has a potential to become a global leader in renewable energy and electric vehicles. So it has a multiple positive impact of innovation.
So are you therefore suggesting that the way economists or analysts would look at the growth of any economy, that how much are you exporting? Typical balance sheet. How much am I importing? How much am I exporting? You're saying basically we need to stop worrying about exporting bit, and we need to start thinking कि हम अपने देश के लिए ही कितनी innovation कर रहे हैं, कितना सामान खुद देश की जरूरत के लिए पहले बेच पा रहे हैं. क्या वो रास्ता आगे मनोज भाई?
No, because globally there will be a trend, and maybe that trend has already started, of slower globalization. I'm not saying it will go away. Slow globalization will continue, but it may be slower or lower. In that context, it's our responsibility first to make products and services first for our own consumption. We have 1.3 billion people, and their consumption should be a serious priority. And if we can produce it ourselves, we can manufacture it ourselves in this country. For example, manufacturing sector. If we can manufacture it, and I think we can. Our auto sector, our auto component sector in Chennai, in Pune, in Gurgaon, and such towns is fantastic. By the way, our quality standards are 6 Sigma. The quality of a car produced here, the quality of a component here, and that's why components are exported all over the world, to US, to Europe, to Japan, to Korea. Why is it happening? Because our quality standards are good now. It may not have been good 50 years back, but now they are very good. So therefore, manufacturing sector has to get a boost, big boost now, and government is also planning that. Industrialists are planning that. I'm sure there'll be many multinational manufacturing companies who will come here. First priority is Indian consumption, our domestic consumption. I'm not saying exports are not important. I'm sure exports will happen to Asia, to Africa, to other parts of the world. But first is we should satisfy our demand fully. If our quality is good and costs are reasonable, then why not? That's our first priority.
How does one deal? How does one deal with the question of oil imports? And I'm specifically asking you this question, Manoj Bhai, because over the years I have seen, in 2014, when Prime Minister Modi came to power, one of the big talking points was that India is going to move completely to only electric vehicles. Everything will be electric by 2030, or 2024, 25. There was a 10-year target which was set. Then that 10-year target got pushed up. I get a sense that in India, we are all very good when it comes to, having these lofty ideas. But when it comes to the execution part, we somehow struggle. Therefore, how do we balance this gap between ideating and execution, Manoj Bhai?
No, clearly execution is the real thing. Frankly, you can't just have targets and not have full execution. For example, on renewable energy, just to take an example, we already are 75 gigawatt of renewable energy, which is solar and wind and biotech. So this technology itself is taking off well. Our target is 200 gigawatt by 2022 and 450 gigawatt by 2030. And I'm sure we'll get to the target. We may be plus minus a bit here and there, but I think we should get there. Electric vehicle also, I understand government is planning major incentives to this sector. I'm sure government has already advised the industry to move steadily. Now, frankly, one has to be careful because the existing IC engine industry has to reach to some viability, because many of them have put plants in the last few years. So the plants have not paid back yet. So I'm saying one has to very carefully make this transition viable for the industry, viable for the consumer. That is a role government, I think, is playing, so that it's not done very suddenly. It is done over a period of time.
No, but let me put it this way. Since you and I were talking about manufacturing, my mind takes me back to 1933. Franklin Roosevelt, the former US president, he started off with the New Deal. When the Americans were confronted with the Great Depression, what did the US president do? He said, I'm only going to focus on manufacturing, on public infrastructure. I'm going to publish more money, bring in more money. Let me be this manufacturing hub. I'm asking you, Manoj Bhai, as a banker, as a thought leader, do you think India is in that vantage position today, where because of this evolving global scenario, we can very well end up being the manufacturing hub for the world now?
Absolutely. I feel that India will benefit from this transformation time. And there are three, if I can specify, three big shifts which will happen in our favor, Indian favor. Number one is what we said about oil. That firstly, the oil prices have come down, which will benefit us. But if we develop our own solar energy, wind energy, electric vehicles in a big way and become a global leader, that will definitely take India far ahead. And also we'll save very, very precious foreign exchange. Number two, as we said, very important to push the manufacturing now, create SEZ, special economic zones, all over the country, in each state of India. And in SEZs, give land, give power, give logistic support, give whatever benefit to Indian companies, to international companies. And I'm telling you, our engineers are fantastic. Our engineers are the best engineers of the world. I mean, look at our engineers in US, look at our engineers in any part of the world. They are the best in the world. So our engineers, our mechanics, our technicians are fantastic. So we have talent and we should go for it. And luckily, government has released schemes for electronic sector, very attractive, for medical care, medical equipment and sector. So they are releasing maybe sector by sector. The third area, which has already been initiated and now action will start, is the infrastructure, where 1 lakh crore has been earmarked for next 5 years. Now, no country in the world has this opportunity of building roads, bridges, ports, railway stations, so many things. Now, let me tell you, these 3 big areas, and I'm only talking of 3 big areas, will benefit 2 most important segments of India. One is small and medium businesses, because each of these companies, each of these factories will have small vendors, medium vendors who will supply to them. Number 2, all the daily wages, blue collar workers. So both the segments, which are very close to the heart of India and to the government of India, will benefit from all the 3.
If you say that the government is on the right track, let me then take that forward and let me look at it slightly from a consumer perspective. We all know that the real backbone of employment generation in India is the MSME sector, and the MSME sector we've been seeing for a prolonged period of time has been crying out for help from the government. What is the roadmap that you envisage, say, for the MSME sector post-COVID world?
I think this sector is the backbone of India, because India's organized sector, which is large companies, is only 10%. Unorganized sector, which is MSME, etc., and very small businesses and agriculture, are 90% of India, which means majority of India, big majority of India is this. So therefore, it's very important to encourage it. I understand that government is planning a major package which will benefit MSMEs very soon. So I think that realization is very high now. I feel that each of these sectors, whether it is automotive sector, whether it's manufacturing sector, whether it is infrastructure, will create and benefit the MSME sector much more than any other sector. Because this can't be done only by large corporations. Every large corporation will have 100, 200 MSMEs working under it, under the umbrella. Like Maruti, you named Maruti. Maruti has hundreds of vendors. And all those vendors benefit as Maruti grows. Not that we should not build large corporations. We should build large corporations in a big way. But also simultaneously support the MSMEs, which I think government is planning to do.
So let me, while you're taking this position, the government is certainly well helping various sectors of the economy hold on to their position in whatever way. But let me make it even more direct for you, and let me hear from you. What do you make out of it in course of your experience? Because you've dealt with such a vast variety, of all kinds of corporate entities in your career. I'm seeing all around me, Manoj bhai, I get so many calls these days, and it pains me. I get so many calls from top CEOs, from top employees, from engineers and all, who are all saying, boss, meri pay cut ho gayi. Mera 20% cut ho gaya, mera 40% cut ho gaya, and everyone is saying that I don't know where to go to make my case, because my company's revenues have also completely shrunk. In that kind of a scenario where people are feeling the pinch, neither can I go out. I don't know what is in front of me, because it's a very uncertain future confronts me. And to top it all, my pay is also being cut, or I'm simply losing my job. What would be your advice to people like me?
No, I think this is a very important test of management of various corporations. Very important test, because it's a test of people. And at this time, the management has to be very, very sensitive and empathetic to people, because these are tough times. And except for employees who have poor performance or they have poor ethical situation, I'm leaving out those 2 categories. Otherwise, good employees have to be safeguarded. Because when the market opens up in few months fully, these employees will help the company to come back solidly. And if these employees are not there, you won't be able to get good talent easily. So let's say if a company decides that, okay, I need to reduce 20% or 30% cost. So rather than reduce 20-30% of people, it's better to reduce 20-30% of the salaries for a, let's say, period of 6 months, for a period of 12 months, whatever period company feels that it'll take time for business to come back to normal. And be transparent, be honest with the employees that, okay, this is the way we will do it. Your jobs are secure. So you will get back the salary maybe in 1 year's time, you'll get back 10%. In 18 months, you'll get 20%, whatever the company decides. So that there's a transparency, there is a confidence in the employees. I feel companies and senior managers have to inspire and motivate employees at this time, rather than make them depressed.
So that's what a real true leader is all about, isn't it, Manoj bhai? And I was talking to a top corporate captain in the morning today in Mumbai, and he told me that way back in 1980s when the Chinese and the American markets were on the way up, the adage on whether it was the street there in America or in China was always this, that every adversity will produce an opportunity. Absolutely. Now I'm trying to understand from you, Manoj, by purely from a corporate point of view and from a leadership point of view, do you get this sense that in India, corporate tycoons, are they only wedded to the balance sheets, the top line and the bottom line? Or is there somebody who's also thinking, how do I create greater human capital? How do I contribute on a better happiness quotient? Are people in that direction as well for you?
Absolutely, they are. Majority of them are, let me tell you, they want to build human capital. And they are working hard. They are giving training. They are giving retraining. They are giving a lot of incentives for people to upgrade their skills, etc., etc. And that will happen more now, because a lot of employees have to change their skills, have to gain new skills. And companies are doing it. Companies will do much more in the times to come. So profits will come through people. Profits don't come just like that. If the people are committed to you, if they're loyal to the business, if they use their entire intellectual power for improving the margins, improving the market share, etc., companies will benefit.
So who's a true leader? Who's in times of a completely unprecedented, uncharted territory like we are all in? People ask me, boss, kya hone wala hai? And I always say, if I knew that, the land is the biggest person around. So I don't know kya hone wala hai. And I don't think anyone knows kya hone wala hai. In that kind of a scenario, Manoj bhai, if nobody knows kya hone wala hai and all of us are in uncharted territory, how do you quantify or define who a real great leader in these kind of scenarios would be?
No, leaders will be tested massively in this period now. Next 2-3 years, you will see many leaders will pass the test and some leaders may not pass the test. But I think the leadership expectations now are different, going to be different. Number one, agility. Leaders need to show agility, and employees will respect those leaders. Customers will respect those leaders who are agile, who take swift decisions, who make changes swiftly rather than procrastinate. Number two, leaders who are flexible, who acclimatize with the new environment. For example, I was talking about digital. One of the companies, TCS, has announced that 75% of employees will work from home because their business is fine. Their business demands that much. And therefore, that many employees will have higher productivity. Less people will be on the road. Less people are required in office. So it's a very courageous call which leadership of TCS has taken. The third thing is the leaders who are not only humble, but also very authentic. They have to be honest. They need to share weaknesses also, their own vulnerabilities. Only then the people at large will say, yes, he is our leader, because he's transparent, he's open. Even his own weaknesses, he doesn't mind sharing. Because leaders are not gods, And finally, leaders who can be courageous, who can be bold. Because this is not a routine situation. It's a very difficult situation once in a century. Leaders who are bold will actually do very well, because they'll take bold decisions and courageous decisions. So I think this is the shift in leadership which will take place now.
How do you, it's completely my misfortune that I haven't had the opportunity or the privilege to work with you, Manoj bhai. But you appear to have all the qualities of what a real, true, inspirational leader should be. Where did you manage to come to these conclusions? Just what you said, I think it's a very important statement to make, that a leader must be someone who shares his insecurities. Were you the kind of leader who would share his insecurities with his employees? Because otherwise you are only used to these corporate CEOs who say, boss, I am the king. What do you know? Main batata hu tumko kya karna hai.
No, but leaders in the older times used to be godlike and who can never make a mistake, who never can have a weakness. I think those were unreal leaders. Now we need real leaders. I have luckily got 41 years of experience. And I've seen leaders who are grounded, leaders who are humble, who are open, are much more acceptable to today's generation, rather than leaders who are arrogant or who show that they are the most powerful guys. Because team wants to help you, the people want to support you, and if they know your weaknesses, if they know that okay, he is struggling, they will come and help you, hold your hand.
So I take you back to the initial part that you were making, frugality. We began by frugality, and now we're nearing towards humility. Are you in some ways suggesting that what this COVID period will do, even if someone was an arrogant leader, it may force you to change your colors because you may not have any other option left?
Absolutely. You need to. Arrogance won't pay in the future. Humility will pay. Frugality will pay. Wastage will not pay. For example, I'll tell you, we were taught and I'm sure your mother taught you also equally, to be frugal. And I think we are middle class people. I, for example, ran my businesses in a middle class way. I used to explain to my employees, thousands of employees, how you behave at home, you behave in office. This company is yours, and therefore, if you at home don't waste any food on your dining table, same thing is here. Please don't waste it. These are your resources. It's your company. And I'm telling you, people loved it. People were so loyal. They were so dedicated to the company because the heart of people was in the company. They felt it's mine. Now, the shareholding may not be there, but in spirit, it was there.
So, final question then to you. There would be so many questions which people would have, and I'm sure everyone who would be watching this broadcast would benefit tremendously from your insights. Tell me about one big mistake in your life that changed you. One big moment that changed you, that told you, fine, this direction is wrong, let me shift course. What would that moment be? If any moments come to your mind.
There are many times in life which changed the direction of life. I feel in my life when I joined telecom, I did 16 years of manufacturing and then I did 20 years in telecom. But when I decided to change into telecom, that was the most important thing, because I felt I'll create something at the ground in 5-6 lakh villages, and I will see the society changing. And this is what exactly happened. I went through it with such a gratification that we changed the society in India. Every village may not have bridges and roads and many things, but it had mobile internet. I mean, that was a fantastic thing which we finally did. It took 15-20 years to do it, but I think that was a dream which came true, and I think that was the single biggest decision I took.
So, then lastly, tell me, where do you envisage India, say 5 years down the line? You were telling me a short while back about digitization. And I myself, I'm in the middle of a small village, but look at this broadcast that we're in a position to have. I can't even begin to visualize, Manoj bhai, about the kind of changes which rural parts of India. And you were telling me that you've been to lakhs of villages. I myself belong to a village, and I spend a lot of my time in rural parts of India. How would the rural countryside, according to you, be changed or be impacted by this greater focus on digitization?
No, because digitization is more critical for India compared to Europe, US, and OECD countries, because our infrastructure is weak. So hence, digitization will help us much more than those countries. Those countries will, for example, in GSM, when we did mobile, we really took a leap beyond landline. We didn't have landline, but we went straight to GSM phone. The same thing has to happen for every need of Indians. And you will see that will happen. Every village will have those essential services like broadband, etc., etc. And you see, villagers will get their basic services as a citizen, whether it's ration card, whether it is passport, whether it's anything they need on the broadband in the panchayat office in every village. So that is the service we need right to the bottom of this country. Everyone in this country has to get that. So our benefit will be far ahead of OECD countries.
Okay.
Because of digitization. So that change in the next 5 years is critical.
Critical. Very, very. I think you've given us a very grounded, full 360-degree view of how our life as leaders, as consumers, as manufacturers is really going to change. So let me then, before I let you go, Tell me, how are you keeping yourself so relaxed, Manoj bhai? I mean, I've never met anyone, in these last 2 weeks who's been so full of optimism and energy as I'm imbibing from this conversation. So, kya gana sunte aap, kya kar rahe hain? Are you cooking? What are you doing that's making you, full of life and beans?
No, I think I'm more productive. I've never had work from home till now in my life. This is the first time I'm having. I feel that I'm more productive. That is number one, which means the 10 hours a day I work better than when I used to be on the road, in the traffic, or in the traveling and the flights, etc., etc. So I have much more utilization of time. Secondly, I feel that I'm learning much more. I'm reading much more. I'm interacting with many more people. And when you interact, I think you learn much more, understand each other, not only in India, but US, Japan, Europe, etc., etc. Thirdly, I'm changing myself. I'm learning new things, which I didn't, because I was in a rush. So that also is happening.
So and what is the skill set?
Is happy. Huh?
But what is the skill set you've learned? What's the new skill set?
For example, all my banking, I'm doing all on phone. 100% banking on phone. Wow. So no checks, no drafts, nothing. So this is something I've learned. Many things I've learned, but this is one of the things I've learned in the last 60 days. Because there was no need for a checkbook, etc. And finally, my family is happy that I'm around, because I've been traveling, missing from home for many, many years. So I'm back home.
Lovely. Great pleasure speaking to you, Manoj bhai. And I hope that you stay well, you stay safe. Spread the optimism, spread the cheer. I think certainly Indian corporate setup, I think Indian industry space certainly requires leaders like you to help us understand how we need to change and how we need to reposition ourselves in this world post-COVID. Thanks very much.